Next Door Neighbors is made possible by the support of the Nissan Foundation.
Sisavanh Putavong Houghton is a wife, mother of two, and professor of art at Middle Tennessee State University. She's called the United States home since she was a small child, but her journey began like thousands of Laotian refugees who fled the communist takeover of Laos in the mid-1970s.
We were in Vientiane, which is where my dad worked at. He was a doctor who also worked with the Red Cross. Because he was affiliated with the Red Cross, we needed to leave because that's part of the U.S. If you didn't leave, you'd probably be put in another camp of some sort, or they just shoot you. My mom found this lady who was going to help us get out of Laos, and so she paid her and told her to bring all your stuff to us this night, and we would then help you cross over the Mekong River, escape Laos. What we found out the next night was she took everything and left us with no boats, which she said she was going to have boats there ready for us. And so my father and cousins and some friends had to get this makeshift boat together and, cross over from the Mekong into Thailand. And so they lost everything. My brother almost died on the way there. They had 7 kids and they were trying to count heads, and he was like almost drowning.
Sisavanh and her family did make it to Thailand. Once there, her father was placed in prison and the women and children were sent to refugee camps.
The story was that I cried so much for my father that they let him go. They said, well, we either kill the father or we kill the child. So they let the father go because apparently my loud mouth allowed for him to live.
After 2 years in a Thai refugee camp, Sisavanh and her family were accepted into the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program. In 1980, they, along with other Laotian refugees, would begin a new life in Kansas.
Growing up in a Laotian household in America, just straight out from, refugee camp, you really get a sense of a disconnect. Trying to understand both cultures all at once. It was a struggle. Every child's different, and as a kid, I personally did not take learning seriously in terms of school, period. And because my parents were not involved in my education, they didn't really understand that. So I didn't pass 2nd grade. I redid 2nd grade, and it's probably the best thing I've ever done. But then it taught me that I need to be serious.
In spite of her initial struggles, Sisavanh may have benefited by her age at immigration. Young children seem to have an easier time learning a new language, and those who do immigrate before age 13 usually do as well in school as their American-born classmates.
I realized that in 2nd grade that if I didn't make the grades that I wasn't going to move on. I later on, then became valedictorian. I got straight A's. I made really good grades in college, and I knew that education was the way to get what I wanted in life. And so that was important because I saw these girls, the Laotian girls who then wouldn't do well. Most of them were still working in factory jobs, and they're still in that community.
Despite the educational benefits of coming to the U.S. at a young age, Sisavanh and her Laotian peers face the cultural and socioeconomic challenges familiar to new refugees. Even today, 38% of Laotian students do not graduate from high school, indicating barriers to education that can span generations.
In a sense, it was kind of like, you're not going to amount to anything because this isn't your country. And I had to really overlook that as a kid to think, I don't think that's true. And I didn't allow for myself to get stuck in that kind of way of thinking and life that I couldn't amount to anything just because, we came over as a refugee and that we didn't have any money.
As a young woman, Sisavanh realized that to achieve her goals, she would have to make her own path.
Making a break from the Laotian community, maybe that wasn't something I thought I was trying to do, but in a sense, I was doing because there is this certain stigma about being a woman and being Laotian.
Sisavanh met Dr. Ida Fadzilla, associate professor of anthropology at MTSU, while teaching in the same building. They immediately bonded over a shared set of experiences. Fadzilla not only studies immigrant communities, but she too is a Southeast Asian immigrant who can speak firsthand about the challenges facing young women from traditional societies.
I think there are issues that immigrant women have to deal with and negotiate all the time. Women are expected to be housewives, they are expected to be dutiful daughters, they are expected to stay home and be good mothers to their children. So things that don't fit into those categories, things like pursuing a higher education, going to college, getting a well-paying job, doing something that you love outside of the home. These are not necessarily things that are seen as appropriate for women when they come from more traditional or more patriarchal societies. Younger people, when they come here, they feel the pull of traditional expectations. They feel the pressure of living their lives as if they were still in Laos, or they were still in Malaysia, or they were still in wherever they first came from. And that is a pressure people at times reject, because this is a different country and there are different opportunities and there are different choices that can be made.
Determined from childhood not to let cultural barriers keep her from attaining her goals, Sisavanh found her calling within the artistic community and the halls of higher education.
For me to move on and to have an education, I pursued what I wanted to pursue, which maybe that's very American to do what you want to do. And so I ended up being a painter and getting my bachelor's of fine arts and arts, and then later on my master's, so then I could teach. You know, am I Laotian, am I American? You know, whatever it is that I am, I just felt I was in the arts, and being in the arts made me feel home.
Did you girls hear that?
The people, you know, the sense of community, that was my people, that was my tribe.
There is the idea that you are either from here or you're from somewhere else. But what I see is when you come to the United States or any other place, a lot of times what you experience is actually a third kind of belonging, right? So you are not from your old place, you're not from your new place. You're a mix of the old and the new. And I think that's the perspective that's interesting.
While taking what may be considered a non-traditional path, Sisavanh still pays tribute to her Laotian roots through her artwork.
And my work has always kind of dealt with identity of self, identity of culture, where did I come from, pieces that dealt with also escaping Laos, making works about boats and travel and nesting and what is a home. Home is people who have similar beliefs and values. They might be, you know, from Mars, but it doesn't matter, right? Because you can talk to them about certain things, and so they understand you. It's not necessarily a concrete, tangible place you go back and resort to, or a certain ethnicity, or, you know, a certain culture. I think home has such a broad definition to it. That's, for me, what home is.
Next Door Neighbors is made possible by the support of the Nissan Foundation.